Hello everyone and welcome back to our Married at First Sight videos. We are super excited to start recapping Married at First Sight Atlanta Season 12 episode run, Countdown to Meltdown. If you don't know who we are or haven't watched our videos yet, I'm Cassandra.
And I'm Mom.
And we are Millennial Mom, who recap Married at First Sight in different videos throughout the whole season. So make sure you stick with us throughout the whole season because we're going to be doing this. We want to hear you guys' comments. If you're new to us, please subscribe. To our older subscribers, our loyal subscribers, thank you for sticking around. And we are definitely excited to hear your comments about these couples. So before we even start on these couples, I just want to say that this episode was egregiously, is that a word?
Very much so.
An egregiously long episode. For episodes they already did in the past, like the matchmaking special and the kickoff special, it was basically that episode once again in here reintroducing the couples. Only difference was we saw their friends.
Yeah, it was definitely a filler episode. We talked about that because honestly, they could have cut to the chase. Like you said, we saw the matchmaking special, so we had like 30 seconds of friends each, I guess, in the family. And then, you know, the most interesting thing was the Bachelorette and Bachelor Party.
Right.
To be honest. And then
the one wedding.
And the one wedding. We could have got out at least 3 weddings to have 2 for next week.
We usually do on this show.
And then hit the honeymoon.
Right, but they're stretching it out. But for those who weren't able to watch those, we're going to go over the couples again. So our first couple that we're going to talk about is Vincent and Brianna. And Vincent, she is 27 years old. She is an engineer. She is definitely very motivated. She has a lot of things going on. She said that she is a slow starter when it comes to affection. And that kind of rings the bells to previous people who are on Married at First Sight. Her list, she said she doesn't have a long list.
That's what she said, but when she started going over it, I thought it was quite a bit of a list.
Patient, stable, attractive, a friend.
Okay.
That was a long list.
Well, once she got talking with her friend, it became a longer list.
That's true. And her friend was very excited for her to get married, but she was like, well, how are you going to do this? Because, you know, you're kind of stubborn. And Brianna also says that she's the type of person who re-cleans after somebody because she's very organized. It reminded me of somebody over here. I was like, I wonder too.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily go behind someone to clean. I mean, if you
Yes,
watched it
you
good
do.
enough, don't be. This is not about us. But I would like for you to do it right the first time. But if you don't, I like the effort that you put in.
Well, her friend, all in all, wants her to be happy, but says, you know, this is kind of like Russian roulette because you never know what kind of person you're going to get, which is true. But I think she's matched with someone who is going to fit with her, and that is Vincent. Vincent is 27 years old. They also, in the matchmaking episode and the kickoff episode, labeled them as an interracial couple. Some people agree with that. Some people don't.
I still say they're intercultural instead of interracial because the other couple on here, Ryan and his wife,
Clara,
that is interracial.
well, we'll get to that a little bit later. But Vincent is an auto broker. He aspires to have a family. He wasn't close to his family, especially his dad, because his dad wasn't in his life. He said he wants to be the provider in the relationship and show protection. But he also has been a little bit, you know, in a relationship in the past that didn't go right because the woman he was with didn't support him. So he's definitely looking for that support. Vincent went to talk with his friends, and his friends were pretty much on board with it. I'm not going to lie. One of his friends, I had to jump back a little bit because his glasses was definitely glaring in the thing. So I could see why, Mom, you don't like wearing your glasses on camera. But
Well, I wear mine to read, really. That's what I need mine for. But his, you know, you can tell that his were a little, you know, higher prescription. He may need his all the time for whatever issue he has going on. But that is not why
I just had to bring that
we
up
need
really
to
quick.
even discuss. But his friends were very supportive, and I was surprised at that. Because normally, friends aren't normally supportive. They're normally like, why are you doing this? Or are you
like
sure?
we saw with some
Yeah.
people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, They seem like they're going to be a good match, and the friends seem very supportive. So I'm loving to see their actual wedding. So now let's hop into Virginia and Eric. Eric is 34 years old. He is a pilot and in the Air Force Reserve. He's afraid to grow alone, says that being a pilot can cause strain. And not only do we have some interracial couples on here, this is our first divorcee, and he's been divorced for 3 years. Do you see this possibly being a problem?
Being a divorcee? For who? Him or for his soon-to-be bride?
His soon-to-be bride.
It depends on her personality. I don't know what the problem would be because they didn't mention he had children, so they really don't have that type of bond. But unless his ex-wife is still close with their family, they get along, who knows what that dynamic is. It could be a possibility of a jealousy issue if something comes up where the wife is not trusting.
So, that is true. But when he went to go meet with his mom was in disbelief, but something that the mom said I wasn't really feeling, and it was like, well, you know, you should go experience life more. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I don't know if she said that because he's only been divorced for 3 years and maybe that's not long enough. Or maybe she thinks that because he's only 34. But if he's ready to get married, he's ready to get married. I mean, how long does he have to wait? He's 34.
Well, let me throw in my devil's advocate. I find it hard to believe because he's only 34. What do you mean only? He's 34. And it gave me the vibe of another show called I'm in Love with a Mama's Boy.
Ooh.
So maybe, you know, he's still a mama's boy and he needs direction from his mom to go forward, because even though he's a pilot and everything like that, he was real nervous to tell her, and, you know, he was very unsure about it, like, what's his mom going to say?
Well, we'll have to see on that one. But she might have a little bit of a problem with his match, who is Virginia. She is 26 years old, which I think from 26 to 34 is a huge age gap. But that's not the problem for me. The problem for me is she didn't really proclaim herself as being a party girl. But, you know, in a sense, she's still a party girl. She still goes out every weekend with her friends, getting drinks and stuff. And I know when we watched the matchmaking special, Mom said that, yeah, she seems like she's actually ready to be married in a relationship. And I was like, I don't think that she's ready or mature enough to be in a relationship, because you can't just do that, being partying, all that stuff one week, and then next week you're married.
So you're saying you just can't turn it off. But again, no, well, there's lots of things you just can't turn off when it's you after a certain age. But again, she clearly went through the process where the experts thought she was ready to be married.
That's a whole nother topic right there with the experts, which I'm going to get into also a little bit later.
But let me say this before we move on with her family. The reason why I said it was a possibility that she was ready to be married was because of her family background. You know, she is longing for. She is, but she's longing
then
for.
We could say that with Chris too.
We can, but she's longing for
affection, love, someone to be stable.
The long-term, the stability and stuff like that. Because when she tells her dad for FaceTime,
on FaceTime.
Okay, on FaceTime. This is over 40 crowd here. You know, he was like, oh, I was afraid you was going to tell me something like this. He wasn't here for it. He just did not want her to go through the process. He's not on board. He's not supportive, anything like that. And she felt that he wouldn't be. Just by the dynamic. Now, I don't know if she got into all the dynamics right now, but she did mention that they weren't as close as they used to be, and they butt heads. I don't know if that's because he's been remarried so many times and she didn't necessarily get along or like the things he was doing, but there's definitely a disconnect. So I think she's longing for that, and maybe she could bring Eric
some joy, some fun
out of his shell, because again, like I said last week, there's 2 men on here that's way laid back for this experience to me with the women they're matched up with.
Well, I guess you agree with Pastor Cal when he said that she seems like she needs someone who's stable. So.
But I also gave them a maybe. They was not my yes.
Well, let's move on to our next couple. This is Chris and Paige, who we all know is going to be that couple for the season. I think we all established
It's
that
going to
at this
be a
point.
definite standout. Mm-hmm.
So Paige, who is 25 years old, she's a realtor and an accountant and owns her own home. So Paige is out there doing it at 25. She wanted to
5
be...
or 26?
She's 25.
Okay.
Probably 26 now, but 25. She says she's always wanted to be married since her little Barbie dolls and all that stuff.
Oh, Barbie and Ken?
Mm-hmm. She's ready to live with her man, flaws and all, no matter what. Come hell or high water.
That's
She's
exactly
in there
what she said.
like swimwear, as some of my friends like to say. But she also really wants someone who is a God-fearing man.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that they both connect on.
Yeah, they both connect on that to a point to me. They connect on that as far as where she's concerned, where she really wants a God-fearing man. That's what she portrays. That's what she says. That's what she's looking for. That's part of her whole being besides having kids and what she's put on earth for. Versus Chris, whose family dynamic is they're from a background where they're all preachers or pastors or whatever.
Yeah.
And when he said he used to be one, I was like,
He was until the money wasn't enough for him, so he had to go do something else.
wait a minute, where the money reside?
It wasn't with Chris, but now it is. But what I thought was interesting with both of their families, Paige's family, well, specifically one person, I didn't catch what the guy's name was.
It was her brother. I don't remember his name, but it's her brother.
He was like, "Are you sure you're ready? Because you don't even know this man. Like, you usually have a long laundry list of things that you want about someone, and
Her
now he
too.
just has to be God-fearing. What if you make $7?" Then she was like, "Well, you know."
And the answer was
Maybe.
like, it or maybe,
No.
girl. It was a no. Because if you wanted someone that had all your lists checked off, and I have always said, it doesn't matter what someone does for a living as long as they're working because they can contribute somehow. That's not on her list. She wants somebody with where the money reside. And in comes Chris, who may provide that for her, but her brother also said that, he's only been married for a year and change. And I'm here to tell you right now that it's something that's hard, that, you're going to have to put in some work for it. And she just kind of like sat back and she listened to him a little bit, so it seemed, for right now.
Yeah. Well, now with Chris is 27 years old. He has 2 jobs as well. I believe he said he is a finance manager, and he owns a restaurant, which I found out on Twitter that it's a Subway. So now I see why he said he eats out a lot, because no one's trying to eat Subway every day.
You never know. Remember, there was that Subway diet.
And he's in jail. Moving on. He said this is what he wants. He wants someone who's intelligent, submissive, sexy, good in bed, and without all those, it's going to be a sad Chris with blue balls.
And when he said that, I hit the pause on the TV because I'm like, well, one, you can't knock him, I guess, for being honest, but at the same time, that doesn't show me, or I don't hear you saying something to me that makes it seem like you want something long term.
Well, because it doesn't seem like he 100% wants it long term. He wants it for a business. He wants it for a title. He wants someone to be a power couple with.
Exactly, because he also said that, he wanted kids too, no less than 7. And when he said 7, he goes, like a business, like for your name, your brand. I'm like, wait, was that the same sentence? Like you want your kids to have the business brand, or you just want 7 kids without the pause, the comma? The brand, the business, because that just rubbed me all the wrong way. But when we see Chris tell his family, his grandmother said, and his grandfather too, that, I need you to have an open heart and open mind about this.
Because that's not what you usually do. And
Boom.
that told us everything we need to know so far about Chris until we see him in the upcoming episodes. But I feel like it's still going to be along those same lines. So, moving on to Haley and Jacob. Haley is 28 years old and she is a sales representative. She says she hasn't been in a relationship since she was 21 and she's always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Been to 14 weddings. How many people that's getting married 14 times?
Well, it's not so. You act like it's someone getting married 14 times.
Just in general.
Well, if she's in sales and that's her thing, she's a partier too. Maybe she knows people that's from work or whatever got married, but it's finally her turn to be the bride.
She said she's been in 2 committed relationships, and one of the 5-year relationships was super controlling, and then got a girl pregnant. So now she got trust issues. I'm like, experts, where are you finding these people? Hopefully they counsel them this season. I am praying that they actually do this. But for me, when she went to go tell her friends, didn't it seem like one of her friends, she wasn't hating, but she was kind of being like really negative?
Well, what I have on my notes here is she was real pushy and in shock. She's like, what? Kind of like, what? You're getting married? To who? Like, I'm still stunned over here. One, okay, it's okay to be stunned because that is a lot to drop on somebody. You get married in 2 weeks, especially if they don't know you went through the process.
Yeah.
But it really came across as if, like, why are you doing this? Like,
Like, you don't need that.
yeah, and her other friends was like, well, you haven't really been in a relationship. It's kind of like, you know, you were in it, but if you don't want to be in it, you're not in it. Kind of like she's not the relationship kind. So they weren't really supportive at the time being until we get to
The wedding dresses?
the wedding dress scene. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a negative Nancy. And then we get to Jacob, and Jacob is 38 years old. Another couple with a big age gap, which I think is a red flag. So Jacob says he feels like he is at his last chance being ready to love or being in marriage because he's almost 40 years old. But then in the same breath said he's a very optimistic person. I'm like, you can't be optimistic and then think you gonna be married. You can't be married after 40.
Right.
It didn't work for me.
Don't side at me.
But his friends were really supportive. And one of his friends, the lady, excuse me, she was, in other words, I couldn't find, she was very stoked. She was excited. She was happy for him. She was like, I want to see this play out. I'm like, okay, are we going to see you all the time then?
Well, you know what? Because to me, if you have real true supportive friends, you know, over a certain age anyways, that you've all matured, hopefully, you want to see your friends who may have had a setback get back on their feet and move forward, whether it be a career or a life or something like that. And that's the vibe she gave to me, like, okay, yeah, like real happy for him. Because in the scene when they, you know, did the tuck shopping, they were there, and it's like his friend and the guy looks like they were together because they were, you know, arm in arm, hugged up. So I think they really won the best for Jacob.
Now, on to our last and final couple, Clara and Ryan, who is the other interracial relationship on this show. Clara is 27 years old and she's a flight attendant. She says she had lots of awful dates before. She's ready to be with someone who she could be social with because, you know, she can talk to the wall. And at first I was liking Clara, but throughout the episode, I was kind of like, I'm not really feeling Clara and her energy. But once again, her family and friends really seem to be supportive of this.
Yeah, they're supportive. And Ryan's friends are supportive too, by the way. And no real thing to talk about with them, just with the matchmaking special. They both seem to be on the same path. Ryan's more ready with Mr. Conservative. He drinks the same smoothie every day. He browses the same websites every day. He works out 2 hours every day. I mean, sorry to say this, but Ryan, you come across boring.
I'm surprised you said that because you usually don't say that about people. It's usually me.
Right. He comes across boring, and one of those other men, like I said last week, who was just way laid back. Hopefully he'll surprise me and open up. And I think that's why they maybe matched him with Clara, because she's like chattermouth, kind of like I could be chattermouth too. But he just doesn't seem like he wants to be into all that conversation, to be honest.
That's true. Well, later on in the episode, they all meet up with each other. So the men meet up with the men, the women meet up with the women, and the women's vibe, we're going to talk about the women first. They seem to really, for the most part, without all the shade, mesh with each other.
I think the women...
And they were more open too.
Yeah, I think they were more open, but I also saw some judgy moments from two of the women on here, Brianna and, what's her name? Clara, with the different questions or topics that came up in conversation.
Yeah.
I was like, they're being awfully judgy when you're both in the same boat yourself.
Especially when Clara, when they got to the mimosas, bought lingerie for everyone. And then I believe it was Virginia who was like, oh, well, you know, I never had lingerie before. And Clara was like, oh, that's interesting, with the Married at First Sight music. I'm like, Well, not everybody does everything that you're supposed to do. But what I found interesting, because they weren't really talking about too much at the women's meetup, but Paige went from saying how she's God-fearing and all that stuff when they first met up to the second meetup, telling them, you know, she gonna need somebody to eat her booty like groceries, but she not eating nobody's booty.
Right. And fellatio came up too. That was like...
That was at the party.
It doesn't matter what segment it came up, it still came up with her, Clara, in it.
And then when we go to the men, they seemed kind of awkward a little bit. And to me, it was kind of awkward. And then Chris, I guess he was trying to make everyone open up with his questions, but I'm just like, but your questions aren't that good.
They weren't good and they weren't deep. And I don't think the men were awkward. I think it was kind of like maybe jockeying for position to see who's who and how they're all going to vibe together. Because again, the 3 of the 5 that's way laid back were laid back then and at the bachelor party. But Chris's question, one of the things he said was, which is just something that is just a total turnoff. And again, maybe as the show goes on, he'll change my mind, but I doubt it. Was what happens when you get to the altar and your wife is ugly? Well, first of all, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And if you're so mature, you know this already, Chris. And so, you know, just with that turned the men off. Yeah, that turned them off. And I don't know. I just gonna try to stay positive. I'm staying positive for right now. I'm not trying to do like
last season.
Yes.
Well, Vincent said, which he made a very good point. He said, you know what? It's not about what that person looks like. It's about you meshing with them and you vibing with them, because that's why the matchmakers put us together. And I'm like, thank you, Vincent.
Exactly.
We've been saying this for season after season, and
season after season,
everyone has. So I'm glad he saw that, but he's not changing Chris's mind, because Chris's mind is already set and made up.
Exactly.
And that's how that is. And then later on, they also went through, of course, the shopping for the wedding dresses and the tuxedos. Nothing really much happened. They all really picked beautiful dresses, in my opinion, and the men looked good.
Yeah.
But Chris...
You know, let's not make this a Chris review. You know, he's going to come out with something because A, to me, he knows he's on TV. And B,
yes, exactly.
He's trying to shine, and he's shining, but I don't know if he's shining in the best light he could possibly shine in. I mean, them shoes he picked out, you know, I want to match to my shoes. He's just giving so much self-absorbed energy, in my opinion. Again, I'm trying to stay positive. That is just not a good look. You may want love, but then again, you was just engaged before you came on the show.
But that brings the point back up to when he went to go meet with his pastor, and he talked about him being engaged. His only negative, nothing else. He's handsome, he's fly, he got money, all that stuff. But his only negative is that, and for that reason, and him always having sex on his mind, which we can tell, he doesn't want to have sex with his wife during when they first meet or the honeymoon.
Okay.
But then that brings me to the point. We're fast forwarding all the way to the Bachelor and Bachelorette party. So when they were at the Bachelor party, and of course all the men were there, they had the strippers. Some of the men who were laid back, like Jacob and Eric, weren't really feeling the vibe. Vincent was feeling all the vibes, and I was like, Vincent, you need to slow down. Even he was like, they might think I'm an a-hole on TV, but he was drunk. He was still doing what he was doing.
Well,
but then Vincent was like, but wait, where's Chris? I kind of think it's disrespectful that he's coming late. Chris comes in the party. He looks like he pre-gamed already, turned up to the max with a doll with him with the mask on. And then Vincent's like, hey. I'm like, Vincent, you need to pick a side. You can't be doing both on the show. You know we're going to read you for it. But it was a question that Jacob kind of asked, like, you know, are you going to go all the way on the wedding night? And then Chris was like, you know, I'm not going to go all the way unless she wants to go all the way and she's beautiful and all this other stuff. And Jacob was like, oh, so you're just saying this for camera, so when she sees his back, you can say, oh, you know, it was pretty much your option and all the other stuff. So Jacob saw right through him, and I saw right through him too.
Well, at least the topic came up with, you know, are they going to bring condoms? But normally the Married at First Sight people give you condoms. But again, it's a lot of noticing of the cameras being there. So, okay, maybe because it's new and it's fresh, but if you're doing this for the cameras,
it's not going to work. But Paige said flaws and all, so we'll have to
she did.
give her that. So now going to the Bachelorette Party, of course, we already knew Virginia was going to be the turned up person there.
Yeah, we did. She was a turned up person, and she had a lot of chatty Cathy questions that were kind of, I'm not gonna say they weren't inappropriate, but it was just like, I don't know, get under people's skin a little bit, I guess, because she asked questions of Brianna, and Brianna said whatever she said and walked away, and then she got
I think it was about her religion, like how is she religious and all this stuff, like what does she believe in. She said she was Christian. Maybe that kind of rubbed her the wrong way, because Clara was, I think, having the same questions too. But Clara, to me, during this whole meetup with the ladies, was so shady and so judgy, and I was like, I'm not really feeling how Clara is talking about the ladies, especially Brianna. You always have to choose your words, especially in this day and age. And maybe I'm just reading into it or listening too deep or something like that. But for right now, I'm not feeling Clara in how she's speaking.
I agree.
So moving on to the only wedding we got, y'all, for the whole 3 hours. The only wedding between Ryan and Clara.
Yeah. The only thing is, so we can wrap them up, is that they've had notes and letters sent to each other, which I thought that was different, because the only thing that I remember was from last season was Olivia sent something to Brett, his own ring and stuff like that.
Which I hope she got back.
But, you know, they gave nice little, well, Clara gave a nice little...
She gave a box with, like, alcohol and some shots that she made, and she had the Smirnoff ice in it, because I guess if you ice someone, that means they have to get down on one knee and drink, so she wanted him to get down on one knee before she met.
Yeah.
And then Ryan gave her a really, 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 really sweet letter, which surprised me.
Well, it surprised me too, but not really, because honestly, I was like, this is like your vows to her. To me, it was like your wedding vows, because that's what it resembled it as. And Clara was like emotional, her family, her friends were emotional, and once she read that, that's when she had a self-described panic attack. Like, now her dress wasn't good enough, and her hair wasn't good enough, and nothing was good enough.
Her makeup and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you had a problem with that, you could have told her before you got up, because I'm sure she gave you a mirror to check yourself.
But the most interesting thing of all time was, now I thought when I saw this season that all the brides and grooms were going to be blindfolded. It wasn't. That was Ryan's idea, who wanted to have a sense of emotional connection with Clara. And I thought that after seeing that, that was definitely unique. And it tips the scale a little bit for Ryan, but not that much to where I think they may make it. But you never know.
The MVP for me was Ryan's brother, because he was not here for it and here for it all at the same time. I'm like, I hope I see more of you as well. But that was pretty much the whole 3-hour episode. Hopefully next week we can actually see all the weddings.
Yes.
Because that's always the interesting part, with their families meshed along, and then the honeymoon. So it was a filler episode. I don't really have any thoughts or feelings about it. What do you think?
No thoughts or feelings. Just want to see the rest of the weddings.
Just have the opinion.
Like the weddings in the first half, receptions in the second, and then week 3 we get to the honeymoon, like typical.
Yes. So with that being said, let us know what you guys thought about this week's episode in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching our Married at First Sight video, especially for the new season of Atlanta, and we hope that you guys stick around. So make sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any videos, and also share this video to other people who watch Married at First Sight.
Thank you all for watching, and as always, live simply, be grateful.